Well, looky here. As you can see, we have two different colors here, and they are blended into one right here. So I'm going to show you how to basically be able to blend with any different kind of pencil, including colored pencils. This is especially useful for colored pencils, so pay attention. Okay, so what I do is I start with the lightest color first. This essentially blocks out a certain amount of color from being laid down from the darker colored pencil, and this is really good because one, you can tailor a color to the exact tone you want, and two, it doesn't ruin the paper. So this paper I'm using is it's a Canson brand, so it's specifically made for drawing. It's 70-pound weight paper, so, and it's not coarse or anything, it's quite smooth. This is very good for colored pencils, markers, and everything like that, because it doesn't allow for this. So this is very lightly coloring with the pencils, so it appears like there's very small pock marks in the actual color itself. It's not a very solid color. Like it also depends on the pigment itself. Like I have a very, very rich pigment here that's, when you press hard enough, obviously not too hard, or else it might actually break the pencil, which would be inconvenient. This is a very, very thick, solid color. The pencils I'm using are, like, the brand is Brutferner, I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. It's German. They're a pretty good, solid choice for an oil-based pencil. I mean, it's a set of 160. I got it for about $24 on a website called Wish. Took a while to get here, but I've been using it for a couple years now. It's lasted a while. Anyway, the basic principle here that we're using is the transparency of the pencil. So a lot of times a waxed-based pencil is especially good for this technique because wax in itself is not completely opaque, it's slightly translucent. So you're able to get away with a lot of different things. Like, you see, this is a very, very dark laying down of this color blue right here. But because these are oil-based, we can actually kind of lighten it slightly. Because unlike wax colors, instead of just blending it or smearing it, this actually puts down a small amount of pigment on top of the color and blocks out the color underneath. So it's a very good way of lightening a color or tailoring an edge. In general, you want to stick with the same color scheme. Like, I would not recommend really using a non-complementary color or anything like that to blend with, or you'll get some funny color mix-ups with that. Like, it's okay, like with this blue, to go over this red because it darkens it, and it actually almost makes it purple. It just gives it a little more hue that it didn't have before. Like, I do not recommend using the white colored pencils as blending, though, because they are also, keep in mind, these are oil-based pencils that I'm using, so they do have the ability to slightly add color over a color, even if it's very dark, which wax-colored pencils do not really have that ability to do. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. Also, I mentioned the paper, and this paper, it's not photo paper, which I would recommend for use with, like, very, very consistently colored things that you don't mind, like, little imperfections and streaks in like this. Like, I have an example of a much smoother paper than this. This is a drawing of Midna, character from Legend of Zelda Twilight Princess, that I drew a while back. Well, actually, first of all, let's look at this. These were created with these colored pencils. This one's probably my favorite. I used the technique where I only use colors of the same palette, so don't use the white for blending. That's kind of a noob move. It really just smears things and makes it much lighter than you would want. Like, I used, actually, on this eye, the white in a very small amount, and look what it did. It took this rich pink color and turned it into a much lighter color than I have here, which is the colors that I used to make this. Let's see. Let's find that picture. Here we are. Okay. This is the picture I was talking about. I used this blending method on this, and it allowed me to create this kind of depth where it appears to be curved, as it would be, and you can kind of see multiple layers of color coming through here. This is what this method is good for, but it is also good for creating very shiny, solid surfaces like this kind of sheen to it. This is one of my better examples. There are other times where this method does not always pan out, so keep that in mind. Just keep the paper a very fine tooth paper, as it's called, so very smooth. This was with the same paper I used before. I drew this today, actually, and I used the technique on these gloves, and as you can see, it really richened the color and had small amounts of highlights to it. Same here with this salmon-y color. But I would highly recommend this method for any kind of drawing style because it's just another tool under your belt.